What a day. I don't know about you, Spencer, but it's been a long time coming, and I just want to say personally thank you from the bottom of my heart for not only co-sponsoring this legislation, but being such a making this such a bipartisan effort all the way around. So I want to say thank you, and I think that the whole point of this opportunity for all of us is to really have an opportunity to reflect on this great moment, 420 to 0. Passing so that we can get the Congressional Gold Medal to the 4 little girls. And I know having family members here as well as civil rights activists who were there and of course Dr. Peugeot, having your input is invaluable as well. But I just wanted to start by just asking Spencer how you feel and what are your thoughts about today?
Well, the response to the bombing was one of love. Which was turning the other cheek. And, the civil rights movement was a nonviolent movement. And we all benefited from that. And that's sort of unique in history, what's going on in Afghanistan, Chechnya, Yugoslavia. I'm not sure that the American people appreciate the commitment to nonviolence of John Lewis, who was beaten several times. Lisa, to your dad, I knew Chris, and one of my favorite people, still is. And there are many times I wanted to say something to him, but he never treated me as anything but an equal human being. And that spoke volumes to me. Could have been bitter, but it woke up the nation. And as far as how significant it is, Boston has been on our minds this week. Yeah. That was a violent, hateful, vulgar thing. But couple that with a place of worship, where people had come to pray and to worship and to praise. And, how demented with hatred someone had to be to do something like that. And of course, you live with it every day. Right. As far as, there's that empty space. But I can say this, that your sisters didn't die in vain. I mean, what they did, it was shed blood, and it was innocent blood. And it could be a biblical story. I always think of Reverend Shuttlesworth being blown out into the street, and someone said, it's time for us to respond to this. And the community said no. We're committed to nonviolence. That's easy to say, but in practice, it's hard to do. So. But, and that's about all I want to say, because you've lived it, I've witnessed it, and there's a difference there. But I can tell you that you ought to be proud of your Congresswoman, who has been so energetic and a driving force on this, and it has been a crusade for her.
I couldn't have done it without the whole Alabama delegation, especially the leadership. And for me, while I wasn't born then, I know I reap the benefits. My generation does. Our generation does, Lisa. Exactly. I mean, we are the true direct beneficiaries of the movement. And, the fact of the matter is that the lives that were lost represent the sacrifices that were made, not just by your family members, but by a whole community. And we all mourn that. And as Dr. Martin Luther King said, it was their death at the funeral. In his eulogy, he said that it was a redemptive force, that we had an opportunity, that the 4 girls in their death were speaking to us, and we had an opportunity as a nation to really step forward and try to live out the ideals of equality for all. And for those of us who are direct beneficiaries, I just think I know I wouldn't be where I am today if it weren't for the many sacrifices that were made. And to just say thank you doesn't seem enough. And I know it's been 50 years in the making, but you know, we're all just very, very excited about this today. And I think that we'll all sleep a lot easier now that we've passed this bill, and look forward to the jubilant day when in the nation's capital, when we actually have our ceremony to present it. How do you feel, Diane?
Well, I'm very excited. I'm happy and pleased that even after 50 years, there's been this vision on the part of the Alabama delegation, and the consciousness really of all of the House of Representatives. That was amazing today. And so what the death, hurtful, and I guess I'll never forget the feeling. But there's also a feeling of pride now in my country, you know, for taking this first step toward redemption. I always have to think about what happened after this catalyst, really, when the nation was stunned, and really the world, because of that act. But
do you remember that day? I know you're the older sister.
I was in New York. I do remember the day when my parents called and told me what had happened. I just fainted. It was just so unbelievable. But that force, we look at the Civil Rights Act and we look at the Voting Rights Act. And I remember how I had worked as a teenager before going to college on voting rights, you know, encouraging people in my neighborhood to register and vote and want to vote, because it was dangerous back during that time, late 50s. So I look and I see, well, we got the Voting Rights Act, we got the Civil Rights Act, and I really don't know that would have happened if it hadn't been for that terrible act. So I'm very proud. I think it's a high honor for the 4 girls, my family and my friends. We've all lived through this, and to receive this honor, and I do, again, really appreciate your efforts.
Thank you. Lisa, how do you feel? I know you were the younger sister of Denise, and you, like I, kind of lived through the aftermath of it. How do you feel today?
Well, I'm on behalf of myself and my family, I want to thank both you and Congressman Backus and the whole Congress for the bipartisan support of this bill. It just means so much, the unity and the coming together. I think it's
especially
wonderful.
In this time of such partisanship.
Yeah, it shows that everybody can get along.
Exactly.
So that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And it's my mother and father are the only parents still living. So, and they're very, very excited about it. They're very pleased and both very moved about it. And Diane and Dr. Peugeot and I were talking before. They're just a little older than I am. Just a little. And they were talking about, reminiscing about how things have changed in the world for them, and they never thought they'd see things like this. And they remember the black and white water fountains and not being able to shop in the stores and stuff. And I told them that I have no recollection of that at all, because I was born a year and 4 days after Denise was killed, and I don't have any recollections of that. And so things have made a change for the better.
Well, I know, Judge, that you were a student at Miles College back then, right, Judge? And I don't know how, I'm sure you could add a lot of insight as to how student activists
well, history is very instructive. We often forget that prior to the bombing at 16th Street in 1963, major activity had taken place.
Oh, yeah.
We had demonstrated in April and May, and as a result of those demonstrations, we had a march on Washington, and there was a growing national resolve to do something about the race problem. And then along comes this senseless killing on a Sunday,
Yeah.
arising only out of a terrorist commitment to penalize and retaliate against those who were bringing about change.
Right.
Well, I think that bombing was all that was needed to give the country a resolve to go ahead and pass the 1964 Civil Rights Act, which has in the last half century transformed this country. Mm-hmm. And it is so gratifying here today to see a Congress which otherwise has been quite partisan to come together on this very important remembrance, and hopefully to realize that there are lots of causes which can bring us together if we'd only look at the larger view. And so I am very, very happy to see my former law clerk acting on a recommendation we talked about last year.
Absolutely. In your office.
and to see Congressman Bacchus, you and others unite behind her to do the right thing.
Well, I know that we are all looking forward to its passage in the Senate, which is the next stop, and it being signed by the President. Dr. Peugeot, I'm just honored that you are, the Civil Rights Institute will be the custodian of the gold medal for prosperity. And, you know, I know it's your job as the president of the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute. You know, you are the Institute is the embodiment of that history and that reflection. And, you know, how do we preserve it, but more importantly, how do we instruct young folks who don't have any clue as to, you know, the black and white, water fountains and other things? How do we make the case of how poignant this moment is?
Well, let me begin by thanking you and Congressman Bacchus for what you've done today. This is, I mean, a significant day and an outstanding event. And I want to thank you for providing the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute with an opportunity to add to the story about the bombing at 16th Street Baptist Church. This is going to be a significant addition to the storyline. And we will incorporate it in the stories that we develop for young people who tour the facility and who actually participate in our outreach programs. However, on a more personal note, I could not help but sit in the audience today and think about how what happened in Birmingham, Alabama, nearly 50 years ago has personally impacted my life. Because when I was a youngster, I could not even visit a museum or a library without having special permission, and could not have imagined that today I'm here participating in this event, and hopefully in a few months we will be able to exhibit the National Medal. So it's just great to be a part of this.
Well, I know that our time is drawing near, and I just think that it's important that we memorialize how we feel. I think that the emotion runs high, but I think that this will become a part of the history that is told. And you know, I obviously am eternally grateful to you, Diane, and to you, Lisa, and to your whole families. And but as you said, Dr. Peugeot, you know, we wouldn't have a black congresswoman or a black federal judge or a black curator of a museum. That couldn't have been contemplated 50 years ago, let alone a black president of the United States. And while this country has a way to go, we have come such a long way. And I think that the bipartisan nature by which we pass this bill today and brings national recognition not only to the life and legacy of Addie Mae Collins and Carol Robertson and Denise McNair and Cynthia Wesley. It also is an opportunity for the city of Birmingham to, once again during this 50th commemoration year, really reflect on how far we've come as a city, and to pause and really be able to reflect on that. I don't know if any of you have any other comments that you'd like to add.
Well, I'd just like to say that it is a wonderful testimony to our Congress at work. And I just, a bit of caution that we not forget, let us not forget the turmoil, the struggle, the progress that we've made as a country, and let us not regress, because if we don't keep these incidents in mind, some of the many sacrifices that have been made, we don't keep that in mind, we may slip back. And so I'm hoping that everyone will be proud to recognize these 4 girls and families, and that they will also always keep in mind, let's not forget.
You know, the Bible is full of stories. Remember.
Yes.
Remember what happened. And, this is America at its best. Judge Clements was talking about today, the spirit on the floor. This is democracy at its best. And so many people that spoke said, what has resulted has made me proud to be an American.
Absolutely.
And we need to know there's always 2 paths we can take. And this is our better nature.
Yes.
And members of Congress came up to me afterwards on both sides and said, boy, that felt good. It was good for my soul.
Yeah.
And it is good for our soul to not to forget and realize we've come a long way, but not to go back and not to let our guard down.
I think that's the rub.
That's right.
That is the rub.
We must never go back
That's right.
to the conditions that existed at that time and prior to that time, but instead move ever onward in the spirit of bringing America together and making it the America it ought to be.
Absolutely. Both you, Judge Clement, and you, Spencer, are both natives of Birmingham, and I'd be interested in knowing your thoughts about where Birmingham is today and how this event was so transformative of both the city that both of you have grown up in and love.
Well, Birmingham has made substantial progress, but far too often it has forgotten. And the kind of commitment of blacks and whites to building a better city, we don't see much of it these days. Hopefully this kind of remembrance will inspire in those who lead us and who would lead us the absolute necessity of blacks and whites working together to solve the problems that affect all of us.
What about you, Spencer, growing up and being from Birmingham?
My mother would complain about how black citizens were treated. And she said things at home, and children listened. And it could have been a different message at my house. But I remember one time on a train when she took offense to how a man was treating a porter, and she lit into him, if you knew my mother. And I think we can teach our children to do the right thing, or our language, we may not mean or intend to teach them the wrong thing, but they may pick up something and it leads them in the wrong direction. So we have to be cautious not to let our prejudice or to harbor those and we have to. There has to be a conscious effort. Birmingham, you know, I've seen Mobile make progress. I've seen Huntsville make progress. I've seen Nashville and other cities, and you know, I don't. Birmingham.
It's come a long way. I mean,
it has absolutely, and let me say this:
much better city today.
And it is, and people visit Birmingham and they go out and they say, "What a wonderful city!"
Oh,
yeah,
they
they
do.
But we need to be, and I think we are in certain ways. We're more committed, but maybe it's. I don't want us to forget that. I don't want the younger generations to go to turn their back on.
Well, I'd like to proffer one other idea, and maybe Dr. Pujo, this is something that you can be involved in. My sister Carol in 9th grade was right before the church bombing. The city had developed a committee of students, of high school students, and it was on human relations. And she was going to be a member of that committee on human relations. And I think that sometimes that something like that may still be needed, because the outreach to get the young students talking about getting them engaged in their what's going on with them every day. That was the purpose of that committee 50 years ago, to get the students to talk about their experiences in their communities, to get along together, to see what do we have in common and what's different, and can we respect what's different in other people. And that is still needed today. We have made wonderful progress, but some of the situations with the students in school show a lack of sensitivity, and a group, human relations, diversity, whatever you want to call it, would probably be very beneficial even in this day and time.
You know, I know that when we as a delegation talked about how we can really commemorate the 50th anniversary, our desire, our earnest desire, was to bestow this this medal on the 4 girls and their families, to respect and to their legacy. And you know, I think that we'd be remiss if we didn't say that some of the family members didn't receive it that way. And I think this is a great opportunity for both of you to just talk about that a little bit, and sort of what your response would be towards that.
Well, as I said, and I will continue to say, it is a high honor. I certainly respect and appreciate it. It's the nation recognizing what happened and how bad that was, and how badly that looked for the United States of America,
now, we
the
know
state of Alabama.
Right, and we know that this medal can never bring back that life,
it cannot,
or really, yeah.
But it's a recognition that we realize what we've taken from you, family-wise, individually. I think there are 2 separate issues, and my thought was I never wanted to take the focus off of supporting the Alabama delegation, getting support from around the country to get people to sign on to this bill and say this is what we really should do. We owe these families this much. The other situation is separate. I do feel for the other family members. I sympathize and I understand their point of view, but I wanted this gold medal to be held out separately as an acknowledgement from the country that we recognize the lives that were given and the price that the families had to pay. But also we thank, in a crazy sort of way, that we were able to move on and look at what we've become as a country as a result of that.
I'd like to just circle back for a minute and talk a little about what we do at the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute. We see ourselves as another educational institution, and we spend a lot of time, money, blood, sweat, and tears working with young people in Birmingham. Specifically, we have 2 programs that we have annually. The Birmingham Cultural Alliance partnership is designed for middle school kids in Birmingham. And they tour all of the cultural institutions in the city and learn about the contributions of African Americans and others, all designed to help them with their academic achievement in school. And we've had some success with that. And then we have a program for high school students. It's a leadership program, and it's for high school students from throughout the metro area. And this past summer, we were fortunate enough to receive a grant through the American Alliance of Museums to send 10 Birminghamians to South Africa to learn about the apartheid experiences there, and 10 youngsters from South Africa came back to Birmingham to learn about the movement. And I just want to share those things with you because we are really committed to helping young people become more tolerant of people who are different.
Yes.
Well, let me say something about the unique position of the 4 girls. To be sure, many blacks and whites paid the ultimate price for the freedoms that we now enjoy. Indeed, Virgil Ware was killed on that very same day.
As was Johnny Robinson.
But exactly. But what was so unique about this was that these 4 girls simply went to Sunday school. And as a result of their going to Sunday school, they paid the ultimate price.
Yes.
And I think that thought is what makes them different from the others who were brutalized and some even killed during the same period of time. But it sets them, I think, in a different position than many of the others.
Well, I know that our time is drawing near, and I just, again, on behalf of the whole Alabama delegation, you know, we are just so honored that you all were here to witness the passage of the gold medal bill, and we just want to thank you for you know, receiving this award on behalf of your family members in the humble spirit in which we intended for it to be received. And want to say thank you to all of you. I think that this has been a very healthy discussion, and just again want to say thanks, Spencer. It's a definite a bipartisan effort, and couldn't have happened without your leadership, and I want to thank all of you for being here.
Well, I appreciate Judge Clement's reading that he stood up to Bull Connor.
Yeah, that's true.
And,
it's a good note to end on.
You're taking your life in your hands.
It took a lot of love, but it took a lot of bravery.
He lived to tell about it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Has a big platform to tell it from too.
And,
so thank you all. Thank you.
It's been great.
Thank you.
Thank you.